Greetings, Internet! HeiseNerd here, and welcome yet again to another week of HeiseNerd Speaks, the program where I sit in front of a microphone and speak my mind on some news in the gaming, tech, and pop culture worlds. Coming up this week, we're going to talk once again about YouTube and their new program thresholds. Going to also be talking about Nintendo again because they put out a big announcement, and I have some different news about Nintendo this week as well. We're going to talk just a little bit about Castlevania Season 2, and we're going to also talk about Sony Pictures for a few seconds from some news that I heard about them. Alright, so starting off with YouTube, again. It seems like they're just kind of all over in the news in my mind over the last few weeks. So the news this week, YouTube came out with some news about their partnership program and some changes they were making to the thresholds that previously were in place for the partnership program as far as ad revenue and monetizing your content goes. Before this point, YouTube kind of had a pretty open system. It was really just based on the number of views that you were getting. I don't remember the numbers. I don't have them in front of me. It was still a pretty good number you would have to have on your channel of views, but you could get away with, hitting a viral video and getting that. But anyway, so what they did change it to, the new minimum requirements, and this is like we're talking the minimum to be considered. You need at least 1,000 subscribers, and you need at least 4,000 hours of footage on your channel that's been viewed. Not 4,000 hours put onto your channel, but total hours accumulated by people has to amount to 4,000 hours viewed. However many people could watch 4,000 hours worth of one of your videos. And the reason they did this was really in response to a lot of the controversial content that's been going on YouTube, particularly in this last basically calendar year. Most recently, the Logan Paul incident in the suicide force in Japan. We've just had content being made by these bad actors that are trying to get a few good views on their channel and make some money off it. Especially, one that comes to mind to me was username Daddio5. I think it was spring of last year that they kind of came to light, where they were making content where they were practically abusing their children, yelling at them, emotionally damaging them, and just to put it on YouTube and get views. And I'll go on about that a little bit in a sec, but I kind of want to just talk about my thoughts in general of this program and of this new threshold. I'm not upset about it as far as myself is concerned, because let's face it, I have 25 subscribers at this moment. I have nowhere near the number of hours of viewed content on my page. I'm nowhere near it, and I never had any intention to get anywhere near it. This is simply a hobby for me, and for the most part, it's going to be a hobby for me, unless some crazy chance that I start getting all kinds of subs, but I really don't see that happening. Who my heart goes out to are content creators that are pretty close to these numbers. I'm pretty close to one of these people. Of course, for those that know me and follow this channel and anything else I do a collaborative project with my partner in crime, the real Gino, called the GB3 Podcast. Well, the real Gino, he's been doing content on YouTube for several years now. And he most recently has gotten himself into the mid 700s for subscriber base. And I'm sure that, with the amount of content he's got, I couldn't tell you if he has 4,000 hours. I don't know if there's a way to log that. Um, but here's a guy who's just worked hard at this, and this is on top of doing his regular job. This isn't the only thing he's doing, and he's trying to make a living off of it. At first, it's a hobby, and let's face it, for him, it's also a hobby. Now, granted, at the point that he's gotten at the work that he's put into it, it wouldn't be bad for him to make a few bucks on the side for this, And I think with these restrictions, I feel that it's going to be that much harder for him to make something off of this, Even if it's a few dollars, it'd be nice, It's little bits here and there. It's something, To me, that would make me feel like what the hard work that I'm putting in has some value to it. And not to mention the more subscribers you get, the better you're doing. I will say that I had spoken with him recently. I think that he got himself close to or over the 1,000 number for subscribers. I think he did a push with some collaborators that he's worked with before, and that's awesome for him. And I really hope that we see some progress from the fruits of his labor. I think that he's just worked really hard at this, and I just would recommend getting onto his channel. That's just The Real Gino. Just look it up on YouTube. He'll be your first one that comes up. My also concern about this also is this a starting point, Google? Are we expected for more restrictions to come into place? Particularly, what I'm concerned about is there going to be more restrictions for just creators that are doing this for a hobby, like myself? I mean, are we taking up bandwidth that they're worthwhile people, that they want to say, the Game Grumps and the PewDiePies out there with millions of subscribers? Not that I'm knocking them for having millions of subscribers and doing a good job of putting out content that's good enough to get that many subscribers and that much view time on their channels. I'm just afraid that they're worried about catering to those that are making them money, air quotes, and that they're going to... The idea of YouTube was supposed to be an open community where people could put whatever they wanted to, well, within copyright reason, of course. But they could upload their own stuff onto the internet, whether that's a crazy cat video that you want to put up of your cat, whether that's, you singing at your, at somebody's wedding. It could be anything. And I'm just afraid that people aren't going to get to have their voice on the internet like they used to, because YouTube wants to be able to cater to those who are making them money. And it really bothers me. And I get it. I think that Google's got themselves in a conundrum too, because they have to watch themselves. They have to make a good name for themselves, and they have to be able to protect themselves when idiots out there are making content that hurts their ad base, that hurts their name as a provider of this service. And I just think that we have ourselves, and they're basically between a rock and a hard place. I mean, they're screwed if they let people just keep doing this. They're screwed if they make these kind of notifications. What I will say is that, and I don't mean this by any harm to anybody that's a small creator and wants to make a little bit of money, but there are some out there that are kind of crying, well, I make my living. No, you don't make your living off of YouTube if you are not, a million subscriber, or if you're a 1,000 subscriber, if you're at the bottom of this kind of, if you're barely at this number, or you're at the bottom of this kind of, you weren't making a living off of YouTube. I mean, if you were, I'd love to see that. That'd be Sign me up. But uh, and some people are crying censorship. I don't think it's really necessarily censorship. I think it's really just Google trying to protect themselves. I just really feel bad when it's always a situation. It's not just this. It's always with different things where a few people ruin it for the rest of people, and people being stupid and acting fools. They ruin it for everybody else. It it's just like for instance, back a few years when people were abusing like the disability pass programs at places like Disney World and stuff like that. Well, everybody had to change their way that they did everything because these people were abusing the system. They were basically selling themselves out as tour guides to be able to get people to skip lines with them and charging people for it. It was ridiculous. And I mean, kudos to the companies in the way they changed them, because I know that the new system is actually pretty useful. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. That was just an example. But yeah, I mean, YouTube. I mean, you got yourselves in a pickle, and I really hope that you execute this well, and I hope this goes well enough for you, and I hope that you're not restricting the little guy from being able to put their content up. Not about money, just about I don't want to see myself be having to go through a bunch of hoops to be able to put a video up on YouTube. I shouldn't have to have it reviewed for content or anything like that. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and I really don't want to see that, but I guess only time will tell, and let's just hope for the best. But that is my spiel on YouTube this week. So moving on, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch again this week, because Nintendo actually announced a new peripheral system coming out this April for the Nintendo Switch, titled Nintendo Labo. And what these are basically cardboard cutout kits that you can put together, and you use the Switch screen inside of it and the Joy-Cons, and they do different functions. For instance, there's a variety kit that's one of the main ones that comes with like a cardboard piano that you put the screen on and a Joy-Con in, and the Joy-Con, the camera or the infrared part of it, serves to register the keys that you're pressing. So that's kind of cool. I also think that there were also pieces on this. There was a fishing one that you put together, and you would be able to use it to be able to play a fishing game. There was one that's like a bug where you put the Joy-Cons on the sides of it, and you would use the screen as like a remote to be able to make it move around. Just various little things. And then there's one kit by itself that's a robot kit where you put all these contraptions and devices on yourself, and it uses the Joy-Cons and things like that to be able to play a game where you're like smashing stuff as a giant robot. And then you could do things like, after you put these together, you could color them and customize them and things like that. Now, a lot of people on the internet are kind of clamoring about this and saying, "Oh, this is horrible garbage. Why would you want to do this?" And these are just terrible. And why would you expect us to buy this? And here's the thing. These aren't marketing probably to you. This is Nintendo doing what Nintendo does best. And let's face it, what Nintendo does best and has done best since it has been a popular thing is appeal to children. Nintendo has always been popular with appealing to children, even since the 80s when the NES came out. Because let's face it, who really played NES in the 1980s? Kids. We're talking, kids from the age that average from, I don't know, 7 to teenagers. Some adults played, but let's face it, mostly kids played. We didn't really see people my age really being the average gamer until recently, and that's because guess what? We grew up playing video games. So Nintendo's just appealing to who they appealed to all this time. They started as a toy company, in a trading card company. So of course they're just doing what they do best. I mean, Amiibos, Nintendo Labo, all this stuff. That's what they do best, And let's face it, you know that this is going to be something that flies off the shelves, and kids are going to want it. It's going to be like the Amiibos, where they have a shortage of it because Nintendo always creates their, I would almost say they create their false shortage of stuff to be able to get the buzz. And I think that really is what serves them well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this is. I don't know if it's something I'll get, but just interested in seeing it. On the other piece of news on the Switch, I got my own Nintendo Switch finally, which I got just over this weekend. And I haven't had a whole lot of time to play it, but I've picked up a few games. I picked up Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8. What else did I get? Blaster Master Zero, because I'm a big Blaster Master fan. And I've played a little bit of Super Mario Odyssey, and I've really enjoyed what I've played so far. Kind of harkens back to Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. I didn't really get into Galaxy. I thought that the mixture of the motion controls and the really small spherical worlds really messed me up. I just could not really get into that one as well. So from what I've played of this, I'm really looking forward to it. I didn't pick up Breath of the Wild just because I already played the Wii U version of it, and I wanted to play something new, of course. Not to say that I won't pick up Breath of the Wild, maybe when it drops price somewhere down the road and get another playthrough of it, just because the portability of it would be kind of cool. But like I said last week, I'm just really intrigued by this system. I think that Nintendo finally has... I feel like this is kind of like their comeback moment, particularly after the horrible debacle that was the Wii U. And not to mention, like, the Wii sold well. I mean, obviously, but to me, not as strong of a system, in my opinion, as its previous, their previous systems. Just Nintendo to me hasn't been as the top of the game in the console market. To me, like, I've always felt like after the 16-bit era they dropped off, and I discussed that last week. So I mean, please feel free to take a listen to that. I'll probably put a link in the show notes for you guys to be able to take a listen to that too. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about the things that Nintendo's going to be doing in the future, and I'm pretty stoked about what they've got going out now, and I'll probably have some more reviews on games on Switch in the near future. So moving on to the next subject that I've got. This one's kind of a short subject, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about it. I saw that the show creators for Castlevania kind of put a blurb out there to fans saying, hey, don't forget about us, and you won't have to be waiting too much longer for us to get season 2 out on Netflix, and it'll be this summer, and it's going to be an 8-episode season. So I was pretty excited to hear that. To me, Castlevania, the Netflix animated series, they did a 4-episode short season last year, and it kind of served as an introduction of the characters. And the storyline is based off of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse for the NES. But they use characters from that. Trevor Belmont, Sypha Belnades, and Alucard are the protagonists of this series, where of course, Dracula is the bad guy antagonist. Not a whole lot of story. This is really a lot of build up and setup for the characters, but it really worked well. I thought that the art style was perfect. I thought that the acting was great. Voice acting was great in this. If you wanted my opinion, I would say that this, and I've been around long enough to see enough of them in different things, but this is the best video game adaptation to screen of some form ever. Particularly TV. I mean, we were stuck with things like Captain N and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Now, of course, those are guilty pleasures for me. Don't get me wrong. I love watching me some, animated Link saying, "Excuse me, princess." And some people probably think, "Oh, it's horrible." But no, man. Growing up in the 80s, that was my childhood, man. We didn't have personality to really think of for Link. He was a silent 8-bit sprite at the time, so that was the best we could get, and we were happy with it. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely best animated adaptation by any means, and probably best adaptation to any form of screen. I think the second place video game movie for me, and I know this sounds silly, but I'd probably say if it was my favorite video game movie was Angry Birds. Which is funny because it's really not. It's based off a video game, of course, but it's pretty loose as far as the movie goes. Few elements in there that are, particularly from the game, but let's face it, pretty loose. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this season of Castlevania, and I hope that we got the setup. Hopefully the real story isn't, I hate to say too video gamey, but, we want some story. We want some weight to the characters. We want some development. You can't just have, Trevor and the rest of the gang just hacking up monsters. No, we need to have action and drama and humor. The humor in it was actually pretty good in this season, so hopefully we carry on with some of that too. It wasn't over the top, but it was just enough, But anyway, I digress. Moving on, my last subject, another one, just a little short blurb that I had seen just this evening, was that the head of Sony Picture Entertainment at a forum or at a panel had said that if we aren't successful enough in the next 2 years, we may end up having to sell ourselves. And of course, the first thing that clicks in my head is, well, Disney just bought Fox. Sony's really about the only ones holding on to any Marvel property that's worth its salt left. Now, of course, Marvel's partnered with Sony on Spider-Man, but there's still some restrictions there. I mean, for instance, we aren't getting Venom or Carnage. They're making their own Venom movie. But, I mean, even if they sell themselves, this is just wishful thinking that Disney might get them finally. It's really bad when I wish for any of these studios for their Marvel properties to fail, just because of the fact that I want Marvel to have it all. They are handling the properties perfectly. Well, okay, I shouldn't say perfectly. I mean, because let's face it. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't without its flaws, but overall, I mean, we're talking at least at the least an A- for any of its stuff to me. And I think that's impressive because, I mean, we've gone this long. I mean, this is almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in May since Iron Man 1 came out and this whole thing started. And look how far we've come, and movies and the content from this are still good as far as the movies are concerned. I mean, television can have a little bit left to be desired. I didn't even touch Inhumans. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I made it through maybe a couple seasons of. And it has its following. The Netflix series are for the most part good. But I think that they're doing a good job. And I really do look forward to seeing what they're going to do in the future. And it's only hopeful thinking that maybe they can buy out Sony. I mean, I think they're going to have a hard time, maybe based on the fact that they have so much media property now that I'm almost afraid that they might be coming close to monopoly territory there, and they might not be able to get their hands on it, or they're going to have to like branch stuff out into separate companies or something. Who knows? But we can only hope for these sort of things in the future. So, but that's it for my content for this week. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I know I didn't have, besides the YouTube thing, anything huge to talk about, but just be on the lookout for some more content from me and my collaborative efforts with The Real Gino on the GB3 podcast. Should be having some collaborative other projects and side projects coming out in the future. It's just a matter of time before we come up with some ideas and start throwing some stuff down. Also, announcement is coming out soon that I will actually be becoming part of the DNA Digital Network, which is a podcasting network with a few other programs, and should be able to get my, this will be getting distributed via iTunes, I believe Stitcher, and some other avenues too. So there'll be more options for you to be able to listen to me besides just logging on to YouTube. And really looking forward to be able to get that content to you and the most people possible. And I do really appreciate any feedback that you guys have given me and may want to give me. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, and encourage others to. Anyway, that will be it for me this week, and I look forward to speaking to you guys next week about some other topics, and I will catch you all on the next episode. HeiseNerd, out.